Man, talk about the duality of video games. I've spent the last couple of days just singing praises to Baldur's Gate 3 because of its well-deserved critical and commercial success. It is insane to see that a CRPG like Baldur's Gate has peaked all the way up to 814,000 players at its all-time peak, and to this day continues to peak close to these numbers. I mean, the 24-hour peak as of the recording of this video, 791,000, almost 800,000 players are still playing the game every single day. And then looking at the critical reception, this is actually crazy. As more reviews are pouring in, the Metascore is only going up. Right now, from 21 critics, it's sitting at a 97%, which beats out none other than The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which up until Baldur's Gate 3 came along, held the highest review score of 96% of the year. Now, to be fair to Tears of the Kingdom, it does have 145 critic reviews. We'll have to wait for more reviews to come in to really gauge where the Metascore will sit at when a lot of the major outlets review this game, but I get the feeling that it's not going to stray too far off from the high 90s. And the community sentiment is also very positive, judging by the user score here of 9.1 from almost 5,000 ratings. And if you look at Baldur's Gate 3 Steam listing, you can see that the review score is still at overwhelmingly positive. From 84,000, almost 85,000 recent reviews, it is sitting at a 96% approval rate. Utterly insane. And that's what happens when a game delivers on its ambitions in a very consumer-friendly manner with no compromises to its design for the sake of monetization. It's just a purely content-rich, good-ass game. And then there's Overwatch 2 and how that's been going. So the Metascore here from 52 critic reviews is sitting at 79, which is not as high as it was for Overwatch 1. And you can see that not as many reviewers checked out this game. The user score, though, speaks to a community that's none too happy with the current state of the game or the way Overwatch 2 was shipped. They scrapped Overwatch 1 for Overwatch 2, and they just added a couple new maps and some new heroes, and some of the adjustments, like the fact that it's 5v5 now versus 6v6, has proven to be controversial. The monetization is definitely way worse, and in turn, the progression loop is also way worse. The single-player stuff, the PvE, has been significantly downgraded, while story missions are still going to come out through updates. The hero missions with the different hero skill trees that will allow you to change a hero's playstyle while playing a wide variety of missions, that stuff has been scrapped completely, and so people are just not understanding the point of releasing an Overwatch 2 instead of just updating Overwatch 1, with the speculation being that it's just a matter of greed. It's just Overwatch 1 with a 2 label so they could essentially charge people again for this game and just try to raise the hype for what is essentially, for the most part, a very similar game that does not justify the 2. It's more of like an Overwatch 1.5 or an Overwatch 1 Chapter 2, and that's why you're seeing user scores like these. But where things get really ugly is if you look at the Steam user score of this game. Overwatch 2 was recently released on Steam. It was always on Battle.net, but I think to raise player numbers, Blizzard and Activision decided, let's put this out on Steam, but its reception has been less than stellar, judging by the fact that as of today, August 12th, 2023. It's only been 2 days since the game's launch on Steam, by the way. This game released on Steam on August 10th. 2 days later, we're already seeing that 87,871 reviews have poured in, and the review score is overwhelmingly negative. It's literally the complete opposite of what Baldur's Gate 3 has accomplished. It is such a stark contrast, two completely different ends of the spectrum, and you can see that oh my god! Okay, I was not expecting the score to sink this much lower. Last time I checked, Overwatch 2's Steam review score was sitting at 11% from almost 60,000 reviews. This was August 11th. Now it's August 12th. Not only did the number of reviews increase by 30,000, the score actually went down to a 9%. I actually did not know this prior to recording this video. I did not think the score could go lower. And what this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that Blizzard is continuing to push the boundaries of how many games they can sync to some of the lowest user-rated games of all time. Overwatch 2 has literally become the worst user-reviewed game in Steam's history, sitting at number 1. And this was prior to the score sinking to 9%. Even at 11%, it was already at number 1 worst user-reviewed game on Steam. But now it's sitting at 9%, so that gap is getting even bigger. compared to the second worst user-rated game, War of the Three Kingdoms, which is sitting at 12%. It is actually insane to see the degree to which the community has rallied together to disrupt Overwatch 2's user review score, both on Metacritic and on Steam. Like, to this degree, this really highlights how upset the Overwatch community is at Blizzard for the way the sequel has been handled, for the way the Overwatch IP as a whole has been handled. And again, this feels like a consistent pattern nowadays for Blizzard. If you look at the worst user-rated games on Metacritic, you can see that Blizzard has taken a number of spots. Diablo Immortal is in second place, Warcraft 3 Reforged is in fourth place, and if you scroll up, you'll find other Blizzard games, chief among them being Overwatch 2, which is currently sitting at a score of 1.4, not far off from the likes of EA Sports titles or 2K sports titles like Madden, NBA, and the like. Metal Gear Survive is a little lower than Overwatch 2, but not by much. The difference in reception between something like Overwatch 2 and the critically acclaimed and universally celebrated Baldur's Gate 3 is literally night and day. 96% versus 9%. Jesus Christ, it's like, it's worse than I imagined. And the reviews express tons of common complaints, how greedy the monetization is, the way heroes are locked behind Battle Pass, the way the PvE stuff has been scrapped. Story mode isn't scrapped, it's the hero missions, but it is a significant part of the PvE that people are looking forward to. It still doesn't change the fact that the justification of the 2 at the end of Overwatch 2 is just not there. A lot of meme reviews like PORN so good they made a game out of it. This company is not worth your money. They scrapped everything they promised for PvE and downgraded the game and are slowly reintroducing aspects of the first game and calling them updates. While the gameplay's still there, the greed overshadows everything else. And that's the thing about Overwatch 2, the tragedy of what's happening to the Overwatch IP right now. The setting, the heroes, the core gameplay is all so solid. It's such a great foundation, but the design around all of those positive elements are so thoroughly compromised by this game's necessity to be this heavily monetized live service. The progression loop is fucked. And then beyond that, the disappointment surrounding the cadence of content releases, the quality of content releases, the balancing that they've done that has proven to be controversial in certain areas, and just so many missteps along the way. It all paved the road to a game that had all the potential in the world and never ultimately lived up to them. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Overwatch 2 is the prime example of how not to do a sequel for a major game series. They use the number 2 as a cash grab rather than a true signifier of taking big leaps forward with the visuals and gameplay and overall design of Overwatch. Like, plenty of people miss Overwatch 1 because at least in that game, even though it had loot boxes, somehow they managed to make a worse microtransaction system without loot boxes in Overwatch 2. Like, that's how greedy it is. In Overwatch 1, at least there was a gameplay path towards earning all of your rewards without paying a single cent. And so there was some kind of rewards loop that did motivate people to come back. But with Overwatch 2, everything feels grindier, less rewarding. And it just, it doesn't pave the road to positive community sentiments. Like, do I actually think that Overwatch 2 is genuinely worse and less fun and more broken than some of these games listed here among the worst user-rated games of all time? No, not really, but what this user score represents is the community sending a message. The message is, we're sick and tired of all the BS surrounding Overwatch, man. From how little Overwatch 2 justifies itself as a sequel, to all of the changes that are controversial, to the way they marketed this game and made the hero missions one of the marquee elements that would justify the 2 in Overwatch 2, but then scrapped it after all the marketing that they did, and they knew that they were going to scrap the hero missions before the game even launched, and they didn't even warn people about it because they wanted to make the money first and then drop that sad bit of news. It's the fact that they intentionally kept quiet about the scrapping of hero missions up until months after the game launched, up until a lot of people had purchased the game, many of them who might have purchased it looking forward to those hero missions, that makes that situation especially scummy. And in general, people are just tired of Activision Blizzard shenanigans. And the thing is, you can tell that there's so many talented developers at Blizzard. It's not their fault. They're just following the mandates of the higher-ups, but the higher-ups, their heads are so up the asses of their piggy banks that it corrupts everything. All of these Blizzard games, the potential is immense. And there's always like this really solid foundation. Same with Diablo 4, that then starts to fall apart when the corporate elements begin to seep in, and it just compromises and corrupts everything, all of that potential. And it's a shame to see, man, because when potential is fully realized, that's when you get something like Baldur's Gate 3, which was not corrupted in any way by corporate greed. The CEO himself was just so creatively involved in Baldur's Gate 3's development, basically being the creative director while also being the CEO of Larian Studios, who is both the publisher and developer of Baldur's Gate 3. That's a company that's self-published, so they have full creative autonomy, and the CEO desiring to create the game of his dreams, and in turn the game of the player's dreams, as far as, you know, Dungeons and Dragons style RPGs go. You know, that vision was realized without compromise, without monetization elements to corrupt everything, without artificial grind to extend the gameplay so that players are introduced to time savers and whatever that they can purchase. It's just the purest form of a AAA game. And Blizzard is just so far opposite of that, and it's reflected in the user score here. Baldur's Gate 3 again versus Overwatch 2. Truly, the duality of gaming is represented right here, and I wish more of those bigger AAA publishers who have these treasure trove of IPs, who have talented developers who would be able to realize the full potential of those beloved IPs if they were given the kind of freedom and the kind of creative autonomy and the lack of corruption that Baldur's Gate 3 had to achieve this monumental, incredible success that is so well-deserved. People look forward to AAA games more instead of being so cautious about every new release and wondering what's the catch, you know, especially from certain publishers that are notorious for their schemes and the like. But with Larian Studios, if they can keep this streak going, I mean, they're going to end up being some of the most trusted AAA game development studios alongside the likes of, you know, like FromSoft. They haven't missed yet. And it's cool to see a lot of these like formerly underdog and creatively autonomous development studios and teams and companies like rise up and show the rest of the big publishers, the gargantuan megacorps, how it's really done, and that this model can be extremely successful and can garner you a great place in history. Games like Baldur's Gate 3 will be remembered for many years to come. It'll stand out as a landmark achievement in the history of gaming, whereas Overwatch 2 will serve as a cautionary tale of what not to do. The duality of gaming, ladies and gentlemen. Or at least that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the current state of Overwatch 2 and the fact that on Steam it's managed to attain the crown of worst user-reviewed game of all time, and by miles, from almost 90,000 reviews at that. Like, that is a true signifier of a pissed-off community. That's my take. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.